And we will move on to our final presentation of today. And that is Olof Bohlin from Södertörn kommunerna. And he will talk about coordinated deliveries in Södertörn.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Sound okay? Excellent. Okay, glad to be here. I just need to arrange a bit. So I see myself as a visionary problem solver, I think. I really like good solutions, clever ones. And logistics is one of my favorite topics. And I love skiing. But I'm not here to tell you about skiing. I'm here to tell you about coordinated transport or consolidated deliveries for the municipalities that I work for. I work for 8 municipalities south of Stockholm. I will mention one number 1 trillion times, or at least 5 times, I think. And that's it's 8 municipalities, 500,000 inhabitants. It's a pretty big operation. So, what and why? I started off with a picture that I like. I like supply chain. I like logistics. I like things. But it's also a picture that describes what we do in a pretty good way, I think. The 8 municipalities of Södertörn, they have an agenda. They have cooperated for a long time. I'm not sure for how long, but they have a well-functioning cooperation between the 8 municipalities. Of course, that is due to the fact that we are south of Stockholm and there are other municipalities and Stockholm who are good at what they do. So we need to cooperate in certain issues in order to be competitive. And one thing is sustainability. And all the different municipalities have their own targets, their own strategies, and so forth. But one thing that we together thought about, this was in 2012, I think, or 13, was what can we do with our purchasing power when it comes to goods and so forth, also services. And then we thought, okay, or not we, that was the purchasing managers in the different municipalities. They thought about, okay, what can we do? Can we set demands or requirements on the suppliers regarding transports? Can we do that? And then we came up with the conclusion that no, we can't really, due to the fact that the Swedish law regarding public purchasing, requires that the demands that we have are proportional to the value of the goods. So therefore, we can't go to a supplier and say, okay, we want to buy this kind of goods, but you need to deliver it on a certain time with a certain type of vehicle and electrical one, for example. So therefore, we have said, okay, let's split the purchasing. So we buy the grocery or the goods separately from the transport. That was the big aha in 2012-13. So we did. But who are these municipalities? Well, it's a growing area. All of the municipalities are growing. We reach 500,000 inhabitants this year. By 2030, we are to build 70,000 more housings and 90,000 more workplaces are set to be created in the municipalities. We're building a new city or not a city, but a new dense area in Haninge and one in Huddinge and so forth. It's happening a lot. And therefore, the question regarding not only clever distribution to the municipalities is valid, but also what are we to do with the planning and logistics in the dense area. As I was saying before, there are areas where we have been cooperating. Infrastructure is, of course, one. It's a pretty costly area, but also education and the private sector in order to create jobs. So, back to my favorite picture. We were to use the purchasing power in order to work with sustainability, and there were set some targets, or some targets were set. They were lower emissions. We wanted to reduce the number of trucks. We want to increase the safety, the perceived safety at least. But in order to do that, we wanted to reduce the trucks. And also we want to improve the working environment for the municipality's workforce. If you work in a kitchen, for example, it's good for you to know when the delivery comes, especially if there are like 4 deliveries a day. So we wanted to work with those areas. And of course, it's aligned with the 2030 targets and so forth. Okay. A few words about what we actually do, or what the coordinated transports are. Again, 500,000 inhabitants requires, or divided on 8 municipalities, requires quite a lot of units and staff and so forth. I think we did a comparison before that we saw that we are approximately the same size as Volvo Cars when it comes to number of employees. We today purchase goods. We use a purchase strategy, which means that we are after the highest value for whatever we buy. So we have increased our purchasing, or the supplier base, but in one case we want to lower it, but we also want to use competitiveness when we buy things. So we buy the best goods available. So we now have 22 suppliers that all are consolidated. So this is the point with the coordinated transport. We take all the goods from these 22 suppliers. We purchase a separate transport service. So all goods are shipped to one place, and then we have a separate distribution service in order to get it to the receiver. We have 1,837 purchasers or units that need to get a delivery. It's a quite high number. It's not super big, but it requires some planning. We do 50,000 shipments, just so you know, a year, and we have a pretty common setup. It's EDI based. We know we have orders. We do track and trace. We do scanning and so forth. When I say we, it's not actually me and the people I work with. It's the supplier that we have bought for this. And we today, or in 2018, we had the cars were driven on 99.5 share of renewable fuels. Okay, a bit more about a very traditional picture. The blue dots represents one or a couple of delivery points. Before we started this and implemented the project, by the way, was between 2014 till 2017. I'm part of the last bit of the project that was to put a staff administrative task force, or 3 persons, me and 2 more, that drives this operation. But anyway, we have a standard logistics setup. It's normal. We put an order. It's picked and packed at one of the 22 suppliers. They deliver the goods, such as we saw this morning, to one dedicated terminal that is placed in Västberga, in north of Södertörn, which means south of Stockholm. We have 10 to 12 trucks daily that operates, 18 to 24 different routes that we use. So all the deliveries are planned. That means we have one flow for groceries, and they are set. So each kitchen have 1 to 3 delivery days a week on a time frame, plus minus an hourly or a time, plus minus 30 minutes. It's very tight. And that is just due to the fact that we wanted to reach the target happy employers, or employees, sorry. And we do this on normal or on standard 18 pallets trucks that are driven then on biogas or HVO. So, what have we achieved so far? Thanks to our friends at IVL, or EVL in Swedish, in 2017, we came to the conclusion, they came to the conclusion that we had lowered our CO2 emissions by 73%. Our goal was to reduce it by half, so 50%. So we have reached that target. We did it though, mainly due to the fact that we have planned well, so we have reduced the actual number of deliveries. But the main reason for that is that we changed the fuel. We have changed what you drive the truck with, and that's the main reason why. But we also reduced the deliveries by half, and that was only with 3 suppliers, the grocery suppliers. And that is, they are really good at what they do. They are good at logistics already, but we could, even though, reduce the deliveries by 50%. But somebody mentioned yesterday, if you change something while operating with something else, you don't get the result isn't that, tremendous. But we saw an improvement anyway. We also reduced the NOx gases or particles with 70%, which also is fantastic. Another thing that we have managed to do is that we are able to measure basically everything. We have the purchasing order from a purchasing system, so we know what we have bought. We can then check that we actually get the correct goods that we have ordered, but we also see the footprint of what we do. Today we only see the footprint on the local distribution, but we know down to each unit. So we know what the preschool somewhat bird produces, or what their footprint on CO2 is, which is fantastic, we think. And normally the preschool staff also thinks that is pretty cool. We have continued our trip on to decrease CO2 emissions, but now in 2017, between 2017 and 18, we had reached a pretty good level. We have now worked with more optimization, and we have got an even higher degree of or percentage of fossil-free diesel and so forth. So it's fantastic, and it's also good. What we measure the average gram CO2 emissions per delivered kilo. That's the best we got. So that's what we measure. We're now down on 2.27 grams per transported kilo. I don't have a clue if that's good or not, but that's what we do. If we compare with Älskade stad, it feels pretty good, I must say. I mean, Älskade stad is super, but we managed to decrease the CO2 emissions even more. Okay. To sum up a bit, in order for us to, we try to have a quite holistic view. We work with coordinated transport, that's what I do. But in order to get full effect of this, we need to work with the entire, from procurement or from demand to delivery. So we work with the procurement side in order to buy the correct things, in order also to spend the correct amount of money and so forth, get value for it. Then we try to be as efficient as possible to get happy staff as well. When this solution is good, when it's easy to purchase something, people will follow, otherwise they won't. So we have a pretty efficient ordering process. We know that the coordinated transport work well, and it gives us possibility to do something that we love, continuous improvements. Before, we didn't know about problems that we had regarding goods that were incorrect or something, because they didn't have power or energy enough to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, my milk was bad today. You don't do it if it's not easy. So we can work with continuous improvements, and that's regarding both procurement and delivery and whatever that turns up. So, the future. What we want to do, as the first slide kind of indicated, I think, is we want our staff to feel that it's easy to buy online as it is as you are as a consumer. If you have the same feeling at work, we think that is good. So we work with quite a lot with digitalization. We want to create a happy customer. So the customer journey from purchase to delivery is supposed to be a happy one or a pretty good one. You understand what I'm saying. We also, as I forgot to tell you, we measure the perceived delivery, the perceived quality. So we send as you do when you take a cab or you go to a restaurant and you rate it afterwards, we do the same. We send an SMS to the receiver and say, okay, hi, how was today's delivery? Was it good? And then they score it 1 to 5. That gives us a possibility to work with the people that don't think it's good. And we can lift them up or solve a problem and continuous improvement. We want to improve master data. This is super important. Please ask me about what I mean after this, because I don't have time now. We want to be able to show what stock is available at the suppliers. Pretty ordinary things, but that doesn't work within the municipalities today. But then we also want to work with increased efficiency and sustainability, where we look at off-peak delivery, of course. There are some things we need to do in order to get it happening. We want to use micro hubs, especially, or at first, in order to try zero emission last mile. We have seen a couple of examples of that. We want to do it here as well, or within Södertörn. And that we want to do because it's today we have a pretty standardized, well-operating, functioning distribution setup. We want to see how easy is it to connect it to a zero-emission last mile operation with bikes or something. But bikes is the first thing we'll start. Okay. It says 0 there, so I get questions.
Thank you. Yeah, questions. We have one here already.
Yep.
Hi, have you looked on the effect on the point of distribution, the address? How much have you been able to reduce number of vehicles arriving at a school or at a preschool?
Yes, we did it in 2017, and then we had reduced it by 50%. But that was before we added 18 suppliers more. We lack something, and one of those are the data. We don't know too much about the before coordinated distribution. So we now know that we have one delivery with indirect material per week maximum. But we follow that. So we see that a typical preschool has a delivery every 14 days with that kind of goods, and then they get groceries 1 to 2 times a week. So yeah, we know that now.
Okay, more questions? Yes.
Hello, I'm Ingrid Dean from Schenker. I just wanted to ask, how did you found the spot for the distribution center?
We asked the market. No, we just did a normal tender.
You didn't do any calculation on the optimized logistics flow, or so you just found a
We
available
We
terminal?
had some in the first. We have done two. What's upphandling in English?
Procurement.
Procurement
Tenders.
tenders.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have done 2 tenders now. So one in 2013, I think it was. Then we had some boundaries set that you needed to be within the Södertörn's municipality. So there was a restriction. When we did it now, we have said that we will measure there is a roof on gram CO2 per delivered kilos, and then we know that you can't, if you don't have electrical trucks, which that would be nice, then you basically are free to put it wherever you want. But we don't want to, as the first speaker today, where are you? I forgot your name. But as you were saying, we think that the possibilities, the solutions, we know that the market have the answers. So we just wanted to, we say, okay, these are the prerequisites. One of those is that you're not allowed to have too much emissions. And we've based that on current production. So the way forward is either you work with the location or you work with the trucks that you use. Was that an answer to your question?
Yeah, thank you.
But of course we calculated on it. Where is the optimal location? But we also know that we don't want to build anything in order, if it's not valid, why build new? So it's up to the supplier to answer that question. Or they are free to choose.
So you choose the distribution operator. You choose the distribution operator, and the one who won your tender used their terminal.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
What do you see as the possibilities to upscale and add more, more suppliers and other types of goods in this system?
The thing that we can control are quite easy. We can add on suppliers. That is easy because it's in our control. But what we want to do more is to, as we have heard in Oslo and other places, we want to add the possibility to use this setup to distribute to business deliveries or for other cases. But then I think we need 2 things. One is we need a common kind of problem. We need to be able to find that and to define it. And secondly, we need a business model. We're not allowed to compete with the private side, so we can't do that. So we need a business model where it's profitable in one or the other means for all stakeholders.
Business models are
Yep,
are
business
difficult
model is,
in-
yeah, that's probably the most difficult one.
Yeah. Okay, we need to end
Yes.
this part of the session. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.